on the line with us now and also on YouTube, if you would like to watch, is the great Jason Whitlock, who obviously has been on ESPN for many years, and he was on other sports outlets, and he's kind of made the transition, as many have done as well, going from the world of sports to politics and social issues, and certainly is qualified to talk about the two when they blend together, and he's with us here on Talk Radio 1210. Jason, good to have you this morning, pal. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
No question. I thought you had a fantastic breakdown, and you really went beyond the way I was looking at the NFL and Taylor Swift and how the left has their sights set on the National Football League. And you had a really, really good breakdown that we actually highlighted in my opening monologue this morning. For those that missed it earlier this morning, tell us the conclusion that you arrived at and what conservatives can do to fight back against the left and pursuit of the NFL.
Yeah, I think that the left figured out years ago that if they wanted to have the most powerful voice in popular culture, they needed to take control of sports leagues and particularly the NFL. It is the most powerful force in popular culture. It's the number one television show on 5 different television networks. It's the only thing that still draws a large audience on TV because of streaming and just how you can DVR and watch things when you want. If you want to get a message across, there's no better way to get that message across than through the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And so through Colin Kaepernick and through the George Floyd deal, the NFL players being useful idiots, the left has forced its way into controlling the National Football League. And their relationship with Big Pharma and pushing the vaccine to pushing all the Black Lives Matter initiatives to just totally being a platform that pushes diversity, equity, and inclusion, all the stuff that's emasculating men and trying to unseat the patriarchy and install the matriarchy. They're doing it through the National Football League, and that's where Taylor Swift and this whole Travis Kelce thing and all this focus on Taylor Swift, who's pro-abortion, who's trying to register Democrat voters, who's like everybody else out in Hollywood and the music industry, is totally in bed with the left. They're trying to force her into the NFL narrative and using someone like Travis Kelce to do that. And I also talked about like the whole Deion Sanders phenomenon in college football
Mm-hmm.
and him forcing the rap culture and the radical materialism into college football. The left is taking over the football platform and promoting all their values. And football is something that Christians and conservatives built, supported, and allowed to flourish. And I just don't think we should run away from football and say, hey, I'm just done with football. They've taken it over. I'm going to run away. I think we should fight back. And I think we should fight back with their most valuable event, the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Uh,
No question.
and I think we could send a very powerful message, conservatives, Christians, content creators, if we had a counter event, if we boycotted the Super Bowl and somehow diminished their ratings by 10 or 15% with a counter event, with counter programming, with a day focusing on the issues that concern us. They're using football to promote their issues. We should use the Super Bowl to promote our issues. What's going on with the southern border? Why are we sending all of our money to Ukraine? Why has the Department of Justice been allowed to weaponize itself against conservatives? Uh, the COVID vaccine and the COVID malfeasance and all of that, every issue, the way January 6th defendants have been treated, we could make America take notice and talk about those issues by boycotting the Super Bowl with a counter event, by hurting corporate America, because corporate America is financing all of this lunacy and craziness, and we need to fight back and hit them in their pocketbooks the Bud Light boycott worked. I go on to explain that these other forms of protest, they're not really available to us. If we gather and protest in public, they're going to send plants, informants, people to make us look like white nationalists or KKK members or terrorists. They're going to agitate and then, put us in a court system that's rigged against us. We can't rely on corporate media to speak for us. We have to figure out clever ways to speak for ourselves. And I think boycotting the Super Bowl is one way to do it, and a safe way to do it. They can, if we don't watch the Super Bowl, they can't call us criminals. They can't say we're insurrectionists. There's nothing, I don't think they can do that yet. I'm sure in a few years
They'll find a way.
They'll legalize that.
No question. Jason Whitlock is with us. The podcast and the show is Fearless with Jason Whitlock, and he's with us here on Talk Radio 1210. You talked about, the NFL and the left coming in to take over. Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem like he's going to stand for it or allow it, which is kind of interesting. California guy, right? He's in New York City now, plays for the Jets, Woody Johnson, the connection to Big Pharma and things like that. And he comes out on, I believe it was the show that he does with Pat McAfee, where he called Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer this week, and also standing up against the woke culture that has come after him and repeatedly attacked him because Aaron Rodgers did not get vaccinated and he took other, homeopathic natural remedies, and that drove a lot of people insane. Do you think the league today, New York City, Woody Johnson, are they kind of a little turned off by Aaron Rodgers, or is he above the cancellation?
He's at the end of his career, and he's such a star that he's above cancellation. And I like Aaron Rodgers. I like the pushback he's given. I think he's been awakened by COVID and just what they try to do with the vaccines. But I'm not 1,000% sure where Aaron Rodgers stands on a lot of these other issues.
Right.
And so, I like Aaron Rodgers. Anybody that will stand up to the NFL in any way, anybody that will stand up to the mob in any way, I like. But I think he's been red pilled a little bit. We'll see how far he's been red pilled, but I do think the NFL this year was counting on Aaron Rodgers, obviously moving to New York, their biggest market, and having a big star there in New York, and that may be why they have pivoted since he got hurt. They have pivoted to Taylor Swift because the biggest storyline going into this season was Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and that went away in 4 plays. And the NFL sitting there scratching their head. Well, okay, Taylor Swift. We'll bring all the Swifties and we'll make this about pop culture and all this off the field stuff. And that's the other thing that just kind of really bothers me is how they don't think the game is enough. They think they got to add all this extra stuff to the game to make it popular. And it's because, one, they know they're putting out a weaker product. Football is not the same. It's not as entertaining. The stakes aren't as high. The players are overpaid and not as passionate as the players in previous years. The game's not as physical. It's not as intense as it was. They know they're putting out a weaker product, and that's why they keep leaning more and more and more into this pop culture stuff and things off the field.
Yes. Jason Whitlock is joining us here on Kayal and Company. I found it interesting yesterday. We were talking a little bit about the story with the media malpractice for Major League Baseball with the Trevor Bauer story. I know you have thoughts on that. And it's very fascinating that everybody kind of rushed to judgment and they tried to cancel and end this guy's professional existence. Then we find out that he didn't do what many people thought he did. And some reporters are reporting this stuff when they knew it was not factually correct. And then, of course, on top of it, the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, he goes on ESPN yesterday, and they're talking about diversity in the sport of baseball and how they need to get more black people into the sport. And they totally omitted any conversation regarding the developments with Trevor Bauer. Your thoughts on that story and the media malpractice that comes along with it?
It's fascinating, and just think that in Los Angeles in 2003, the biggest star in basketball, Kobe Bryant, went through rape allegations in 2003, 20 years ago. The NBA did nothing. They let it play out in court, criminal and civil, and did nothing. Kobe Bryant continued to play. His career wasn't stopped. 20 years later, because of Me Too, 3 days after it's made public that this guy's under investigation, the Dodgers suspend or put him on some kind of leave of absence. The guy hasn't played baseball since. That's like what has happened over the last 20 years to the presumption of innocence and any type of fairness as it relates to a high profile athlete in the city of Los Angeles. Trevor Bauer, at that time, the best pitcher in baseball, I think the highest paid player in baseball. The Los Angeles Dodgers do the exact opposite, and Major League Baseball does the exact opposite of what the NBA and the Lakers did. It speaks to how much things have changed in the past 20 years and the power of the Me Too movement and this whole believe all women and men are guilty as soon as a woman says anything. It's a sad state of affairs, and I'm not surprised that Rob Manfred, uh, Major League Baseball, they're not going to make any statement because they might be vulnerable to a lawsuit from Trevor Bauer and his lawyers because I just can't see how the EEOC or anybody could think what happened to Trevor Bauer is appropriate. Uh, the rush to judgment to cancel this guy, I can't see how anybody thinks it's appropriate. And so Rob Manfred might not be saying anything just out of fear that they're going to get sued.
That is correct. Jason Whitlock joining us. Jason, I know you got a couple more minutes left. There's two stories I want to hit on. Let me actually stay with the quarterback for a moment, and then I want to go to a former ESPN employee. So the Colin Kaepernick story was once again back in the news last week about him penning a letter to the Jets and the practice squad in light of Aaron Rodgers going down with that injury. And I said, and I've said this repeatedly, I think Colin Kaepernick has zero interest in playing in the National Football League, and this is nothing more than a PR stunt for his next Netflix documentary or Nike deal or whatever it is. Your thoughts on the latest, because you still have the individuals out there that have advocated for this guy, the Jamel Hills of the world, that will sit there and say he's better to be the backup than Trevor Siemian is, despite the fact that Trevor Siemian is still active in the league. Is this going to be a annual message from Kaepernick, and how much longer are we going to keep dealing with this in the headlines?
Colin Kaepernick's a troll, and he needs the dopamine of attention. And does he have a sincere desire to play in the NFL? No. He has a sincere desire to remain relevant and to have people pay attention to him over social media and to have people talk about him. Look, man, if the guy really wanted to play football, let's go look at Trevor Bauer. He got kicked out of Major League Baseball. He went to Japan to play. Again, and so there's the Canadian Football League, there's the XFL, there's other opportunities. Again, Trevor Bauer went from making 38 million a year in Major League Baseball to 4 million in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he really wants to play baseball. If Colin Kaepernick were sincere about wanting to play football, he'd find a place to play. The Rock just reached out to him again about playing in his XFL or USFL league. I can't remember which one The Rock has a stake in, but Kaepernick has no interest in that. He has an interest in being a troll, and he's some sort of spoiled, entitled idiot. It's like, if I can't play in the NFL, I'm just not going to play. I'm going to take my ball and go home. The guy's not serious. He's a troll.
I totally agree. Final one for you, Jason. I'm not sure if you guys crossed paths when you were in Bristol with ESPN. Sage Steele obviously has become very outspoken against her time at ESPN. African American lady, conservative values, and she kind of bucks the trend. And I think a lot of times the left gets bothered by this, especially when it's somebody of celebrity status or fame or in the media. And I've been reading how kind of the GOP and the Republican Party are kind of trying to push and see if she's interested in making a run for Congress. Your thoughts on kind of where she's come from with being, just a popular anchor to being now kind of a political figure, and maybe what her future looks like.
I want to clarify that Sage is mixed race and is proud of being mixed race,
Yep.
and that's part of the issue. The left is so racist, and all their worldview comes from a racist point of view that they go by the one drop rule that used to be in effect during slavery.
Hmm.
That if you have one drop of black blood, you're totally black. You're not half black and half white. Sage is proud of both of her parents, and I respect her for that. And I have crossed paths with Sage when she was at ESPN, and also 2 weeks ago I did a 2.5 hour sit down interview with Sage about a number of issues related to her journey. I do think Sage would be an interesting political candidate. She certainly has convictions and strong convictions. She's willing to back up her beliefs and stand on her values and take a lot of bullets. So I think she would probably be a pretty good asset in the political space. And I could see why people on the conservative side, the GOP, would be interested in her because she's been through a fire fighting Disney and ESPN, and a corporation like ESPN and Disney that is so hostile to Christian and conservative values. And she survived and fought them and is now looking for what's next. And maybe politics is a good place for Sage. She's certainly well spoken. Uh, her kids, I think, now are grown and, basically out of the house. So I think she'd be a viable political candidate, and I certainly be somebody I'd be willing to support.
The podcast and the show is Fearless with Jason Whitlock. And of course, you can see a lot of his content with The Blaze. Jason, great stuff, man. I really appreciate the time. I always enjoyed your perspectives for many years, even when you were just doing sports alone. So thank you so much for popping on.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it.